Okay, Floss live. Right, today we went to the court. Hope I'm live. Today we went to the court in New Zealand, the New Zealand High Court, to defend the 1688 Bill of Rights, Will and Mary, our indubitable right. We want the world to know that the indubitable right is not the same as the inalienable United Nations New World Order right. So we went to the court today, and we've asked the court if they can give us a declaration. Now, there have been 5 times in the history of New Zealand that declarations have been made for the 1688 indubitable right and protections that are given us. Some of the most important points of the indubitable right is the free speech, the right to free speech. It is illegal to raise a standing army against the public in times of peace. This United Nations New World Order is arms don't have to be guns. Arms can be law. Law can be used as a weapon. And this United Nations New World Order is being used as a weapon against the people of the Commonwealth, of the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. So this can be tantamount to raising a standing army of weaponry of law against the people of our countries. So we went to the court today to ask for a declaration of our indubitable right. Now, once we're waiting for the court order, we don't know. They're either going to say, yes, you can have a declaration, or they're going to say, no, you can't have a declaration. This declaration is so important. The last time we're asking for a whole declaration. Usually, when you go to get a declaration using the 1688 Bill of Rights, you have to ask in a particular right that you're seeking. But today we have not been seeking a particular right. The Crown prosecutors, the Crown Council, have been trying to say to us that in order to get our declaration, it has to be particular to the right that we're asking. And the battle has been, no, we can ask for a declaration of our entire and whole right. So what we're waiting for today to see how the judge is going to rule. Is the judge going to give us a declaration in our indubitable whole right, or is the judge going to decline us? Now, there's many exciting things happening. Another thing that the Crown said was that in asking for our declaration, that we are not permitted to put by Her Majesty of the United Kingdom and Northern and Ireland and Scotland, well, that is the United Kingdom, and Australia and the Commonwealth. They've said that we're not allowed to do that. So it's going to be interesting how the judge is going to decide on his verdict. Now, it's very interesting because if the judge decides that we can't have our declaration of indubitable right to confirm our indubitable right, this is going to give us a great springboard, because we can then take that and we can contest it at the Commonwealth, and I think that we can even contest it at all the way to Westminster. Now, they're saying that we can't, but I think in regards to a declaration of right, we actually can. And so if the judge denies us our declaration of right, we can then go and appeal it, all right? So if the judge gives us the declaration of right, there is some problem there that they might give us just a declaration of right and not of indubitable right, specifically to the 1688 Bill of Rights, Will and Mary. So this is going to be a problem. If the judge just gives us a declaration and says, yes, you have right, and everybody has right, if he does that, it's going to be very bad for us, because that's going to include all the United Nations, Indigenous rights, human rights, all of these kinds of things. It's going to open up a can of worms. So we're all waiting today. I'm not going to spend too much time on the video, just a few minutes today, but everybody keep an eye today We don't know if the judge is going to put in his ruling today, or he may take some time to put the ruling in. This is a very significant declaration because we've asked for the protection of the 1688 Will and Mary for the whole of New Zealand. So keep an eye on Kate Floss today. But another thing, a good thing, is that we're learning the process of the court. We're learning how to get around the courts. We're learning how to ask for declarations of right. And we're going to be encouraging all these common law groups to start asking for declarations of right. Now, you've got to be careful of these common law groups because many of them are American-backed. Now, let's just remember that America has inalienable right, which is a much weaker version than our indubitable right. You must remember this word, indubitable right, is very different. And common law and the natural law is not the same as what is your right. So common law can be extremely arbitrary. It can be used in small communities, and it can be, all of the laws can be based on each particular community. But your common right, your indubitable right, is something that everybody's born with. And it's your indubitable right. You only get like 10 rights. There really aren't many. There are about 10 individual indubitable rights, and there is the direction that Her Majesty the Queen and all royalty are equal to the law, and that they also are accountable to uphold our indubitable right. And it tells us the means to remove them and replace them if they don't do that. And then it's got another set of rules for the Parliament, and it tells Parliament what they have to do in order to govern over us. And it also says to them that Parliament is also accountable. So everybody is accountable in the indubitable right. You'll find that in the common law, nobody's accountable. You'll find that in the United Nations human rights, Charter of Rights, whatever, nobody is accountable. But in the indubitable right, everyone is held to account equally. There's and the people that are held mostly to account is the royal family and the Parliament themselves. When they're not upholding your indubitable right, then it tells you the way that you can go to the court and give the particulars of what they're not upholding to you. So I will just read a little bit. I've been on here 5 minutes, so I think I'm going to take about 10 minutes for this video to you. So I think I'll just spend the last 2 minutes reading to you some of the indubitable rights. What is the special thing about the indubitable right and a part of our case? So we got the 1688 Bill of Rights, and it's in the legislation. You've got it written as a Bill of Rights, but in fact, the Will and Mary is your indubitable right. All right. Now, this is in the legislation of the United Kingdom and Australia and New Zealand, and we are the entities that are supposed to be protecting it. So some of the things that we've got in here, so you've got about 10 rights. One of the things that they're not allowed to do is to raise a standing army within the kingdom in times of peace without the consent of Parliament. Well, Parliament also is not permitted to raise a standing army without the consent of the people. And law can be used as a weapon. And when they flood the country with thousands and thousands of United Nations law that we have no control over, this can be said to be a weapon and used as a standing army against us. So they've also, in our indubitable right, is the disarming of the Protestants is illegal. And by bringing in all this United Nations, we claim that that is a disarming of the Protestant protections. And so that's one of the things that we've claimed today. Now, if you go down there, it will say there frequent parliaments. Frequent parliaments is saying what Parliament has to do in order to govern, and it says that their particular job is for amending, strengthening, and preserving the laws within the Parliament, and those strengthening must be based on our indubitable right. Now, the United Kingdom and Australia and New Zealand parliaments have not been upholding their oath of office of our indubitable right by amending and strengthening our indubitable laws. So it says there that if they are not doing that, that you'll be able to use that as a means to remove Parliament. See, this is where it's saying Parliament is accountable, and when they don't govern you according to a certain set of indubitable promises, which they cannot deviate from, they're not allowed to deviate from it. When they're not doing it, the means to remove them is to go to the court with your particular right that they are not upholding, and you can have them removed. So it says down there in the limitations. So here it's saying, well, first of all, it says, it also says what the tender of the crown, and what the crown, which is the majesty, what the royal family and the royal institution have to do in order to continue to hold your indubitable right up high. So it makes them accountable. So Parliament is accountable, Crown is accountable, and you are accountable, but they are more accountable to us. And this is where we tell them what they have to do. Their subordinate laws tell us what we have to do. Now, with the limitation of the Crown says that they must prevent questions of division, and the United Nations is all about division. And so that's why we're saying that these human rights are pretended titles of the Crown, meaning that they're not the true indubitable right. They are pretending to have more power than your indubitable rights have. And that is what we're saying, that the United Nations is a pretended title of the Crown, and they are supposed to preserve unity, peace, tranquility, and safety. And what we're saying is that United Nations laws is divisive. It's not ruling us in unity, and it's not ruling us in safety because of the separation of all of our people into their rights, because they've got their homosexual rights, then they've got their Indigenous rights, and then they've got their other rights and their other rights. And all of that is divisive. And then what they're doing is they're taking public money and they're giving it to specific particular groups and not giving it to the other groups. Well, that comes under a misappropriate, that goes back to your rights, go back to your indubitable rights, and that comes under the levying of money for the use of the Crown by pretense of prerogative without the grant of Parliament for a longer time, or in an other manner than the same as it shall be granted. When they take public monies and public taxes and they give it to one group, and they don't allow you, because you're not part of the group, they don't allow you to participate in the actions that that group is saying. Because so if they have a handicapped group, right, and then they say, right, we're going to take the common people's money and we're going to give it only to this handicapped group, and we're not, and the only people permitted to judge on the way that that's money spent is the handicapped group, and nobody else is allowed to be involved with that. Well, that comes under a law of being the own judge in your own I haven't got the law now, but being a judge to themselves. So they decide how they're going to spend the public money on themselves. And that is against the law. They're not allowed to be their own judge and jury about the public money. And so that is using the public money in a way that's not supposed to. So that comes under your indubitable right. So there's many, many rights in here that are currently being questioned. So we decided to go to the court and ask for a declaration that our indubitable right exists. If we can get the declaration that is not tainted with the pretended titles of right, then it's going to be a huge declaration for the Commonwealth, a huge declaration for the United Kingdom, for Australia, and for New Zealand, because once we get that declaration, we're going to be able to take it and use it in the courts, legally use it in the courts for the particular right that Parliament is not upholding to us. And part of the thing that they have to uphold is that they have to strengthen and advertise and promote our indubitable right, so we can take them to court for that. So this is a very important issue. We're waiting to see what the court will decide. Come back to me. I'm going to shut the video off now, but come back to me later in the day. We're going to see what the judge rules. My heart is going 100 miles an hour. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be in between. And one of the argument, I'll just say another thing. One of the arguments of the Crown was that they said it was going to cost. It was the expenditure of giving us this indubitable right is going to be very expensive for the respondents. We did call Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and we did call the Minister of Justice, Chris Farfoy, and that was questioned. But we said to the duty judge today, we said to him that the human rights in the 1990 Bill of Rights, which is a pretended title of the Crown, has had its day in court, that they have had thousands of cases sent into the courts all around the UK, all around Australia, all around New Zealand, and it's proved to be a useless piece of, I should not say turd, so I won't say turd. But they said that it would. We said that we're only asking for one declaration, and it's the first time that this declaration has ever been asked for in whole declaration in New Zealand since 1976. 47 years ago, a declaration of a particular violation was asked for, but in 1865, a whole declaration was asked for. So, almost, let's say, 40 years, 60 years, 80, in around about almost 100 years, a declaration of whole right has not been asked for. So this is just huge. It's a very long time, 80 years of not having a declaration. As far as we know, in England, United Kingdom, no declaration has been issued since 1688, 400 years ago. So we're just hoping and praying, but even if we don't get it, don't give up. We're going to encourage everyone to start making applications to court in support of their indubitable right. And if anybody wants to know how to do that, we're getting quite good at this now. Come and join our Zoomy groups and find out how to make the claim for your indubitable right, which gives you a lot more power. It is your indubitable right that gives you power over the tyranny of Parliament, not your fundamental right. It gives you no power. And so you need to be starting to use your indubitable rights. We're going to encourage thousands of people to flood the courts. We want you to flood the courts asking for your declarations of indubitable rights. And if you want to know how to do that, come and see Kate Floss in the Zoomies, and we're going to help you doing that. I'll see you later. We do pray for a declaration to support our indubitable right. Okay.